employment program with CARES Act funding. With this funding, we were able to launch a community conservation corps directly employing 9 out-of-work Sitkans who had all been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We invested almost $150,000 in payroll that went straight to Sitkans in need. In addition to those employed full-time, we did business with over 30 individual or small business contractors, suppliers, and retailers from Sitka, from bookkeepers to rock movers, spending almost $60,000. And on top of that, another $50,000 was invested in the local economy through locally purchased materials and equipment. Over the course of that short and wintry field season we just had, we accomplished a wide range of projects in the city contract and created lasting benefits for the community. So I'll share just a brief overview of what we got done this fall. We restored the historic Presbyterian Cemetery near Cozdaheen Circle with Bob Sam's guidance, a restoration expert. We renovated the city of Sitka's highly used Tom Young cabin, the brand new cedar-sided outhouse. We replaced a decaying cold water storage dam at Goddard Hot Springs. Hopefully we'll keep those tubs at a Goldilocks temperature for long into the future. And we've supported the construction of the new phase of the cross trail by revegetating the disturbed cut banks. And we also installed mile markers for wayfinding and emergency response on the cross trail. We built a whole new mountain bike trail right behind the high school. It's beginner friendly. Hopefully we'll open up mountain biking for a new range of users. We conducted an initial field survey and analysis of a proposed 20-mile cabin and trail network from Kanga to Goddard to Big Bay and back, potentially an amazing destination for outdoor recreation into the future. We also helped Sitka High, their construction program, start on the construction of a local timber drying shed, which we can use to source more lumber locally from the green. And we also were able to address a number of deferred maintenance projects, like clearing blowdown from local trails, repairing boardwalk, and picking up trash. So we would be more than happy to share final reports, documentation, or just chat about the work that we did with any of the members of the assembly. We just sent in our final reports to the city staff, and yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. That's all.
Great, thank you for your report. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other persons to be heard this evening?
Thank you, This is Richard Ween. Thank you, Mr. Huey, for the report, and I will look forward to seeing those final reports. It seems like a lot was done. And as per Der Donagat, I shall be 180 seconds, so I will move through quickly. These are just random kind of items in the news. As it turns out, we will gain 14 seconds of light tomorrow. And I think that is indeed something to celebrate. And I believe, and I'm a very sensitive person, that I can already see the difference. Of note is that San Francisco overdose deaths far outpaced deaths from COVID so far this year. It is enormous how this has occurred. And I'm afraid this is just a deadly side effect of what's been going on within our society. Another short note is that you know that the stimulus bill was passed. It had 5,593 pages, and it was $2.5 trillion, 900 billion, which will be distributed in various ways. Of note, it was negotiated in secret, and very soon thereafter, there was a demand for an up and down vote. The complaint was that there was not enough time to read it, yet somehow virtually everybody voted for it. So I advise everybody to please take a look and see how your money was being spent. There are a lot of summaries written about this, so it's easy to get, and it's definitely entertaining. But as it relates to the city, and is why I bring it up, is that your, meaning the assembly, is going to be coming up to budget time. And so please read it. Please try to understand it and ask questions. And if you don't, come to that, please don't vote if you are not sure or have not read the budget. It's a daunting task. 5,000 is a lot, but this is awesome. And the final thing is that a cadet will not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. That's from the West Point Cadet Code. The cadets live their lives based on that honor. It turns out that just the other day, 70 cadets were caught cheating on an online calculus exam, an opportunity afforded by distance learning. West Point is a lot about engineering, which is all about math. But let's forget about the calculus for a moment, because it is about trust and honesty in those in training to lead and for those who will soon command. This is not a good thing, and it's not a lesson that we need to take into this year from our most cherished of all military academies. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Anyone else for persons to be heard? Please, sir. There'll be a button in the center of the microphone there to turn it on, and then if you could state your name for the record. Yes, of course, please, if that's best for you.
Yeah, my name is Captain Michael Winters. I'm with the United Nations International Police Commission. As you know, the International Police Commission is an international organization. We had the opportunity this year to have a special guest join us, thanks to White's Pharmacy and Harry Race. I believe he's here. Oh, here he comes. He has a message for Sika.
And quite the special guest indeed.
I am. Is the mic on?
It is.
I just wanted to thank Sitka Police Department, PAC, and all the associates here. And I want to say Merry Christmas to all. And Santa is here.
Woohoo. Thank you, Santa. Thank you for your comments this evening. One last call for persons to be heard. All right, that'll move us on to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the November 24th, December 1st, and December 8th meetings. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, assembly deliberation. Melissa?
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Miss Duncan,
Yes.
Miss Himshoot,
Yes.
Miss Nelson,
Yes.
consent item passes.
Great, thank you. There are no board, commission, or committee appointments, nor any unfinished business, so that will bring us to new business, item B.
I move to approve amendment number 1 to BioCare Inc., doing business as Eckert Fine Beverages Purchase Agreement for raw water for export.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment to this?
Richard Ween, I reviewed the contract and found that it is, the reason we are here tonight is because Eckert in the past has basically been non-productive. Example, they failed to export the minimum 75,000 gallons of water. Tonight, they request an extension to their current contract. It is for the rights to buy 100 million gallons of water at 1 cent per gallon with extensions up to 20 years. Sounds good for Sitka if they do sell the water. Figure out 100 million gallons at 1 cent, and that's homework for tonight. However, the structure of the presented contract is more like an options contract, meaning holding an asset with the ability to speculate. The terms are extraordinarily lenient and low cost, $50 a year and then $100 a month, with the stipulation that they take a minimum of 75,000 gallons per year, which is basically $750. They will construct, allegedly, $5,000 to $15,000 infrastructure to move the water. To quote from the Tischer lease in item D, which you're coming up to, it is not the intent of the city and borough of Sitka to allow indeterminate holding of a material site without development. Holding an asset without development is speculation. As structured, there is no motivation to sell, but they still control the water. Therefore, as not to allow the holding of a commodity or water hostage for years, which may not allow others to pursue business here. Remember, in January, Arctic Blue will be coming for billions of gallons. Number one, the first year, consider the current terms, but in future contract years, the amount owed to the city for the privilege of doing what's called a call, as in options, that the city needs to increase the cost dramatically to Eckert in effort to encourage their development. Two, in item 7.5 of the lease, it says that in 2028, the contract with the city is allowed a CPI increase. Well, for our citizens, our cost of living increase is 2 to 5% per year. We don't wait till 2028. And it is not to exceed 3%. How about in 2028, we sell the water at market and increase it to cost plus? Nobody knows what 2028 is going to be. And this is just, in essence, another giveaway without really much for the city. They can always come back and get another contract. Also, the insurance requirement, there needs to have specific environmental coverage, and it needs to be spelled out because of the sensitivity of where they're drawing their water. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any other public comment on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly for deliberation. And so the assembly knows Gary White is in the audience tonight. I don't know if he's prepared to answer all of the questions that might be for the board, but he is here. If no one else has questions, Gary, I do for you. So if you don't mind coming up. And then Kevin, I did see your hand. Did you want to go before me or?
Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay. Good evening, Gary. So I understand that Eckert's business model has changed a little bit from bottled water to now vodka. At bottled water, I could understand 100 million gallons of water annually, but for vodka, that's quite a bit. Did your board explore the option, well, the amount of water that we are giving them still? Because I know while we do have some in reserves, potentially we need this water for other purposes. And I think 100 million gallons is a lot for their new business venture. Was that explored at all?
It wasn't. You know, the city and borough has roughly 9.5 billion gallons of water annually they can use. So if you look at Eckert's volume, it's 0.31% of the entire, I'm sorry, that's not correct. It's 0.331 acre feet. So I don't know what exactly it is, but we settled on 100 million gallons because it was a nice even number. It allows them to have the ability to expand without having coming back. You know, and to date we've shipped hardly any water. We've shipped 900 gallons of water in the past 20 years. So I don't know. I think the board thought it wasn't an appropriate amount of water for them.
Okay, yeah, it just, I don't know, seems a little bit high for the vodka purposes. Also, how confident is the board that at least 75,000 gallons of raw water actually will be exported in this extended period?
You know, we're basing off of their business plan. That's what they say they can pull out of here. Whether they can do it or not, I don't know. I mean, like, we've been in the water business for 20 plus years. And like I said, no one's really cheered up. We have raised about $1.5 million in fees for people to do this. So I think we've done pretty well in leveraging, I shouldn't say leveraging, but working with our clients to bring cash flow positive to the city and borough.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Knox?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that they're trying to do this. It's this distilling of any spirits actually takes a lot of water. If they are truly doing it from start to finish with Citgo water, they are going to have to move a lot in order to be able to make any kind of decent amount to be able to market out there. The loss is quite great from start to finish on the product, but and I don't remember exactly what it is in the end and how it translates into these numbers necessarily, but I mean it is interesting. The whole issue with us trying to move water in Sitka to whoever it is, whether it's for bottled water just for drinking or for making a product or whatever, is very speculative in the end. It's something that we've been dreaming about having a use for a long time. And it's nice to see somebody's maybe being able to do something with it. Although 900 gallons moved out is, as the saying goes, a drop in the bucket. So I'm fine with seeing how this works out in the end, and going from there after that.
I just have a quick question for Gary.
Yes, please.
So how much are we permitted to export per year, roughly?
About 9.5 billion gallons.
Yeah. So if somebody else wants to buy water, we've got some left, right?
Yeah. Next year, and probably January, February, we're bringing a contract to you for roughly about 8.8 billion gallons, which still leaves us with 725 million gallons that's in reserve. And I've always tried to advise that we keep about that much water in case someone really wants to come put a water bottling plant in town. The former water bottling plant we had in town, their contract was for 400 million gallons of water annually. So that's a lot of water. We could basically set up 2 full water bottling plants and still have enough water allocation.
Kevin or Valerie, did you have anything to comment or for Gary?
No, I'm good. I think this is, there's no guarantees really. We'll see how this goes. I'll support this.
I have a different mindset in that I've been there from day one when we started all these water contracts and the idea that we were going to make all this money. And it seems like we've taken it in the shorts a lot of times from day one when it was Tab or whatever it was, and it changed to somebody else. And we had a lease that wasn't written correctly. And I don't like the idea that we're just, letting them 900 gallons in 3 years. Come on, that's not much. Thanks.
Any further discussion?
Can I ask a process clarifying question? It has to do with the fact that this was signed in 2017 and it's coming before us now. And I'm just wondering, when it comes to the 45-day cure note, how did this come on our radar? It seems like there hasn't been performance since it was originally agreed upon. Is that correct?
John, is that something you'd be able to, or Gary?
So basically I have a tickler system set up. So when October 11th, 2020 came along, that was the 36 months. I drafted a 45-day cure letter, sent it to Brian Hansen for approval. John signed it, and then we sent it to him, and then they got back to us. And we actually dealt with them, I think, either at the October or November board member. No, it was the November board meeting. So it fell within that, and that's why it's coming to you guys so late. When we put in there with the 45 cure period that the city and borough has the option to terminate, so it's not an automatic termination. So it allows us to go through the process and be able to bring it to you guys whenever it goes through the appropriate boards and everything.
Does that answer your question? Great. Anything else from the assembly? Thank you, Gary. Melissa?
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
No.
Ms. Himshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
No.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan.
Yes.
Item B passes. 5-2.
Moving on to item C.
I move to direct the municipal administrator to issue the request for proposal as written for private sector development of a haul out at the Gary Paxton Industrial Park and advertise for a 90-day period.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to issue an RFP out at GPIP. Is there any public comment on the issue?
Richard Ween. Anything that we can get from this RFP would be interesting, and it is possible that it is productive. But just remember, everybody, this is business and you have to make a business deal. One is that due to the environmental sensitivity of the area, we need a stipulated environmental coverage. When I looked through the lease, it just had a general amount, but it really needs to be spelled out because that area, due to the prior pulp mill, has a sensitivity, and therefore we need to understand that if a private actor is going to be there and we're requiring insurance, we need to know where the liability stands. The other thing that you should remember is that when, according to the RFP, is that the individuals sought will be independent contractors with exclusive rights for fees and leases. I know that was one of the issues that came up where people were concerned about local shops may be getting frozen out because of that. The other thing is, which I don't see in the memo, is what are the city obligations for the contract? For example, I know utilities is a big one because in the lease it says they will plug into the utilities. The question is, if we are going to develop the infrastructure, how much is that going to cost? And also, what other aspects and needs will the contractor request from the city? And what will their costs be? And I think this is when you make these decisions, it's important that we know up front and have some idea of what things will cost. And so, you know, I was always of the opinion that the city needs to be the tip of the spear and that we need to start it up and other people will come. But I do wish very good luck for this RFP. But you have to remember that within it, the RFP, there are also considerations not only for lease, though lease is apparently preferred, they will, the city will also entertain sale. And I think that is problematic to sell this unique and very valuable land. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public oh, there is people to call, correct? If we could get them on the line.
Hi, Gary White with the Gary Paxton Industrial Park Board. So I'm going to address the RFP overall. I was just going through the packet and realized that the one in the packet is not necessarily the version that was approved by the GPIP board. We've worked on so many of these different ones, so I don't know if there's an ability to change it or we might just have to bring this back in January. But overall, the thought of this RFP and the reason that it was pushed forward this way was we have not been successful in attracting anybody to come and bid on this and put in private sector dollars into it. And it's pretty well known that it is the it's the preferred method for the city and borough to go into a long-term lease. I think what the GPIP board and myself were looking at was, let's cast a pretty wide net. Let's see who's out there. Let's see if there is a really well-developed company that has experience and a long track record of running a haul out, whether they would like to bid on this, knowing that they do it through ownership option. And if we do get a proposal that is from a really well-known group and has a long track record, well, then we can have a discussion and a conversation of whether this is a good move or not. And if it comes back where it's Joe's shady haul out business, well, we're probably not going to enter into a sale contract with them. So this is just trying to cast a wide net and try to see, hopefully there's someone that wants to come and do that. And if not, then so be it. I also want to put out that the board has also just approved policies for a city-owned yard, if you will. We modeled this off of what the community of Homer has done. Community of Homer has a flat piece of ground with an access ramp, just like we have, and they've got a whole manual up there that covers the city and borough or the city of Homer for liability issues, environmental issues, and it allows local businesses to come out and start doing stuff. So that will be coming forward to you guys. We've got it past the board. We're doing some administrative review and changes on it, and we'll come to you guys sometimes in January, hopefully. So
Great, thank you. Yes, please.
Hello. Hi, Linda. It's Melissa calling from the assembly meeting. We're at the RFP for the haul out item. So I'll let you state.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you state your name for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Great. Thank you so much. Linda Benkin, and I think I may have merged Jeff Barber as well, at least I tried to, and he may just add in to what I say. I don't think I need a full 3 minutes, but we did send you a letter that I hope you had time to look at. We just got it in this morning. I tried to outline for you that a small group of us have decided that we need to step in and try and create an interim option for Sitka to not be at any time without a haul out and a boatyard. And our goal is to do this in a way that benefits the community, that benefits our local fleet, and that doesn't preclude any future options of growing to a higher capacity yard, but just getting something started. So what we're looking to do is raise funds under the auspices of a Sitka nonprofit to launch a community boatyard at the GPIP to perform the necessary upgrades to the existing ramp and upland area to use a self-propelled trailer to haul boats. The trailers we're looking at that we feel like we can afford, we hope, will haul boats up to 55 feet in length, not because we're hoping to exclude anybody, but starting small, that's where we think we can land. We would hope to lease sufficient land from the city to have 6 to 12 boats out of the water at a time, and to upgrade the facility to include the utilities that are needed, a washdown pad, and potentially road upgrades for moving boats around. We have a goal of raising between $750,000 and $1 million to support the capital investments and initial year of operations. And we're working towards having a complete business plan to share with the city, as well as some insight from a nonprofit lawyer on the best way to build this entity to run the boatyard, to raise the money we need, and to secure the necessary equipment. So again, our goal is to meet the need in the community by providing an incremental step towards the higher capacity boatyard that we think everybody in Sitka wants. We're thinking we will do it under the auspices of a nonprofit, just to not be competing with other ideas that come along, but to be able to partner with other people who move proposals forward. We think this interim step works best outside the RFP process, but we can also work through your RFP process if that's what you ultimately decide is the best way for us to move ahead. Just specific to the RFP, it's really essential for you to allow, as you currently do in the wording, for multiple proposals, multiple people to come forward with working options. We oppose selling off any of the land and believe that we could need the full amount of land still in community ownership to run an appropriate yard. And we'll stop there. It sounds like my timer went off. I'm sorry to use it all the time, but I think Jeff Farber's online when you're ready for him to speak.
Yes, thank you for your comments this evening. And Jeff Farber, if you did need 3 minutes, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff Farber here. I'm a local fisherman. I also shipwrighted for many years at the Sitka Shipwrights Cooperative. That's my background. I know most of you guys. Thank you for listening to us here. I just wanted to cover a couple things that Linda wasn't able to. The full intent is to ensure that the ramp is maintained as a public access priority. Our plan is to make progress in achieving this critical infrastructure. It will not provide any impediments to progressing to the community's all-important larger goal of a full-scale boatyard. We recognize there may be proposals submitted by community members or others, and we certainly look forward to working with them should they be able to get their developments going. We don't really want to be in the long-term boatyard business. We just see this as a need to get best in that interim step as Linda laid out. Also, I submitted the letter outside of this group on the ownership of the yard, and I think we set ourselves up for disaster if we start entertaining proposals that look at a fully private yard in that capacity. I just look at it from your guys' end and the administrator. Somebody submits a proposal. Yep, we comply with this. We want to buy the whole thing. Now you're locked in negotiations, and there's no wiggle room. And I think the lesson learned up and down the coast is those things don't work. And most successful yards have a public-private partnership like we should be exploring here. So thanks for listening to us.
And thank you both for your time this evening. Melissa, those were both of we have one other person to call?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Is Eric available?
Yeah.
Hi, Eric. It's Melissa calling from the assembly meeting. We're at the RFP haul out item. If you'll please state your name for the record and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hey, my name is Eric Jordan. I'm a longtime resident of Sitka and a fisherman. And I support the proposal by Linda and Jeff. I think that's a great idea that they pursue something to get something off going right away. I also want to say, I think the city should be looking at land on Japonski Island, in particular over there by the sewage treatment plant. There are 7 or 8 haul outs on Japonski for a reason. It is the best place close to town to get work done on our boats. We're all trying to save fuel and have a haul out there where you have to run at least an hour to get out there in most of our boats, and then drive your car or truck back and forth. When we should be looking, and I understand the state owns the land over there the sewage treatment plant. And there's a haul out, couple haul outs right close there. In addition to pursuing what Linda and Jeff were talking about, which I hadn't heard about till tonight, but I totally support. I think we need to look at Japonski Island. That's close. It's been used as a haul out site many times in the past. And let's look at trying to get something going over there. That is the best place to work on our boats, is over there between the airport and the sewage plant out there just to the south of the sewage plant, in my opinion. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Melissa, just confirming that wraps up our telephonic participation.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And John, you had a few things before assembly deliberation?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to walk through this, and maybe I'll apologize in advance here, but I would say frustrated is an understatement. If you look through this timeline here, we started this at the end of January with an RFP that was approved by the GPIP board and the assembly, and we put out an RFP. We got a proposal. We met, approved that, or at least approved the negotiations for that proposal. For various reasons, the proposal was denied. We came back because we heard that we were not getting enough community input. So we kind of re-racked things, took the direction that we were given, and then said, because there was this impression that there was no public input, we provided 3 full months of opportunities for public input through a task force with 2 assembly members that were involved with it, who had given this information out to stakeholders, 2 GPIP meetings, a Ports and Harbor Commission, and here we are at H hour again. And I will also apologize if there's a mix up with the RFP version in here. That was an oversight, and we will definitely fix that. But it already sounds like we're going to have to come back here. But I think we've done what we are supposed to do. We did what we were asked to do, and we're ready to go forward. So I think this is going to further delay things, and that's fine. But my previous life, we would call this wrong rock management, where somebody says, go find me a rock, and we bring the rock. And then when we get here to the table, it's wrong rock, go find me another rock. So we're looking for that clear guidance of what kind of rock do you want, and we'll put it together. We thought we had it this time. So again, I apologize if I sound frustrated here, but for 3 months, we built this RFP, and I'm almost getting to that stage where I'm thinking the best option is to clear off the land, stick out a sign that says future site of Sitka's haul out, and walk away. I know that's probably not helpful, but I think we're going to need to, it sounds like there's going to be some work involved with adjusting this RFP if we're going to go forward with it. So if anything, if we can get that direction, if we want to continue with the RFP and what changes you want to make to it, we will gladly make that happen.
So
thank you. And before we go to the assembly, Valerie, I see your hand there. I do want to reiterate to the assembly that we do not have the most current version of the RFP in front of us that the GPIP board has approved. My strong request would be that we can have some deliberation on this tonight, but not to vote on a document that we don't actually have in front of us. So actually tabling it until, or postponing until we do. With that, I know the administrator is looking for a little bit more guidance if we want to vote this one down. So I think we should talk about it this evening while we have the opportunity, but understand that we do not have the correct documentation in front of us. Valerie, please.
Well, I'm a bit confused now that we don't have the correct documentation, but my belief is the bigger the butterfly net, the more butterflies we catch. And I propose or will support anything that says private ownership or whatever, because when we were gifted this land 20 years ago or 21 or whatever it was, It wasn't something that I supported, and it's kind of been not a moneymaker, more of a drain on city finances. You can look at the history of it and the bad decisions that were not bad, maybe poor decisions with lack of foresight. But I have a lot of hindsight, and I just think that we do need to get that land into private ownership as quickly as possible, because it's a drain on city staff. It's a drain on resources. And I think the RFP should contain both lease and ownership probabilities. Thank you.
Tor?
Yeah, I was in a lot of those meetings and we were talking about this. And I have no problem leaving the private ownership option out there. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, like Valerie said, cast a wide net. I also don't think this RFP contradicts what Linda and Jeff were talking about. There's work on a fee schedule to allow anybody to go out there and start pulling boats, which is nice. I see them as complementary. But I also, I kind of like the water thing we were talking about earlier. When we get the right one in front of us, I'll be pretty surprised if we get a viable bid that includes everything that has in the yellow and the one we have where it talks about, they have to provide all the money, engineering people and everything, because it's really hard to make money on a boatyard in the best of circumstances. And, anybody's going to want to have the control over all of the work done. So I'm willing to throw it out there and say something comes up, but I'm not real hopeful that we'll get something that we are willing to accept. And, I think to those saying don't sell it, I think we all would prefer to do a long-term lease, and it better be a nice, just a can't turn it down type of proposal if we were going to actually talk about selling it. And I'm sure we'd have lots of safeguards. But I think we're going to see something going on out there. I love what Linda and Jeff and those guys are doing. And I don't think it contradicts with with doing this RFP. So I like the fact that John and company have been working on a fee schedule to allow people to go do things there. So hopefully, when we get this back, I don't want to spend the rest of the night talking about something we can't actually vote on. I would lean towards say, yeah, let's see what's out there, but understanding that that's what we're doing. We don't have people banging on our door. So thank you.
Anyone else from the assembly? Mr. Knox?
Yeah, and I'll agree on some of the points that Tor made too. I think I don't think it does preclude anybody coming in unless John or Brian, you have other information, or maybe Gary. But if somebody was out there doing, at least some demonstrative work that it's important to the fleet, it's a viable option for the fleet to be here doing some work. And it's something that somebody can start to demonstrate a business plan around. If somebody else can come in and upscale that, or if it ends up being that small increments are taken and the upscale happens over a longer period of time, and it just happens to be this group that continues that work, so be it. But I think it is a good opportunity for us to start demonstrating that it's something that is needed here in Sitka, and that should be able to demonstrate a good viable business plan around it, to some degree anyway. And if it's not, then we also probably need to know that too. But I think there's a lot of work obviously that's going to have to go into it, and it's a benefit to our community. So we want to do it right, so we're going to have to put the work into it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak.
Yes, right after Rebecca.
Yep,
please.
sure, no problem.
I had I made some notes to myself on the version that we have right now. Are those questions I should ask now, or is it kind of moot until we have the correct draft in front of us? They're content questions, so.
It's kind of hard to know without the actual in front of us, but if you have clarifying questions that are going to help you, I would encourage you to ask.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna help me so much, but under B, preferred outcome, where they talk about setting rates, I was a little concerned about that. I guess we need to allow whoever does go forward with this to be able to set their own rates, but I'm a little concerned about getting a haul out that none of our local people can afford. And yet to make it viable, constricting the rates just might not be a way to go. And then when it comes to the public-private question, I made a note to myself further back here about we had an issue a while back where the city shops were about soil contamination. And I just want to make sure that whatever we put out there, is it at this state, or would it be in another phase that we would, or is it implied that we don't have liability? So that's a concern I had. And then for the public-private question, I guess, I've heard some talk about a port authority. And so I'm concerned if we leave in that it's something that will entertain all ideas, that we'll get one proposal again, that is a purchase only, and that will somehow say, yeah, we don't really want to sell this land. And then we're back to having nothing. So I almost feel like we need to, I get the idea of I liked how Member Nelson said it with the, bigger net, more butterflies. That makes sense to me, but what if the butterflies are not what we want? What if they're moths, not butterflies? So I feel like we should be really clear going into it so that the bites we get, the nibbles we get, are the fish we want, so to speak. So I think those questions are pretty much rhetorical right now until we have the right document.
Thank you. Mr. Mosier?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to get my mute off. So I pretty much echo the opinion of most of the folks here, and that we should cast a wide net. I in support of this in theory. Obviously, you need to wait until we get the actual document. And just, I guess I am a little frustrated as well. I know Mr. Leach mentioned that. I feel like I'm having deja vu, like a year ago or whenever it was that we approved the first RFP. We had people of a group kind of show up, email at the last minute, kind of opposing things, and with kind of promises to do things. And so we went back and I'm not on the GPIP board or that group, but I know that people like Tor and John and others and Gary White have been working diligently to get this done. And here we are the day of the meeting. We get emails and then comments to oppose it with kind of vague promises to do some things. And I'm not trying to be mean or negative. It's just, it takes a lot of work to get this stuff going. And I don't want to just say no just because we're afraid that a sale might make this one thing happen or this bad thing happen. When we put out an RFP, we can choose to reject them. This is basically just throwing something out there to see what we get. Even if we approve a certain, when it comes back, if we approve it to start negotiating, that's just to start negotiating. We have to be able to come up with an agreement that we actually agree on. So there's no thing chaining us to this. And the biggest thing that a lot of members have, like Torres even mentioned, and I know he's intimately involved with this, is I don't even know if we're really gonna, even if we pass it, it comes back and we pass it, I don't have a lot of high hopes that we're going to get some investor in to do this. So we need to give as many chances and possibilities to get this going as possible. Let's keep in mind, we have to get boats hauled out and we got to get them done soon. And we can't have kind of a woulda, coulda, shoulda attitude, but we could do this. We have to start taking action now to make this happen. I know that's a little coarse, but you know, I don't want to hear these same things over and over again. My opinion, let's get the right document in front of us. Let's move it forward. And yeah, it does not lock us in to anything we don't want to do. It's just casting a large net to see what we get. Thank you.
Crystal, please.
Mine is mostly about the timeline. So it makes sense now that we were looking at an old document because I was confused when I saw some dates that had already passed, but it looks like we wanted to put it out there for about 3.5 months and possibly make an award in April, knowing that summer 2021 is just right around the corner. So we're going to put this on the next agenda. And are we still thinking that April is doable for our timeline? And that's all I had for this one.
John or Gary, is it April still doable if we get this on at the next meeting and approved?
Well, I actually have a lot of other questions to be answered before we can answer that one. And if we're ready for open discussion, I can throw that out now, or I can wait till if you have other points. But
I'd like to get the question asked by the assembly member answered, and then we can continue. Yeah.
Okay. April is probably pushing it because I think we have at least another probably 30 days worth of work and an assembly meeting to get it passed if we're going to go to RFP. So we'd be looking at another 3 months from whenever that is posted to get the proposals back.
Gary, did you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Crystal, does that answer your question? Great. And John, you had some follow on?
Yeah, I asked Gary to come up here because, again, I apologize. There was a mix up somewhere on version control. So maybe that was kind of the blessing in disguise here, because it sounds like there are some other issues we need to work through. And now that so many things are stacking up at this point, I would ask some questions from the assembly on where we want to go. So if we've got an interim solution that's been proposed, if we have a rate and fee schedule coming forward, and we have an RFP out, some work together, some don't. So my questions would be, if there is an interim solution in place, we're going to have to structure the RFP to let the proposers know that there is an existing interim solution, and they may have to work around that solution or work with them. It might have to be a cooperative that they have to agree to. There might have to be a buyout clause in there of some sort. So we would have to make that change, and we can do that if that's the will of the body. Also, if we move forward with which should be in the January, one of the January assembly meetings, if we move forward with a rate and fee structure for the shipyard, would that be in conjunction with the RFP? Because if we had a proposer come in and say, I want the shipyard, but we've put a lot of work into an operations manual and a fee schedule, and then we say, scrap it, a private proposer came in here and wants to run the shipyard himself. We obviously can't do both at the same time. So we could use some help on deciding which direction we want to go in at this point. And since I called Gary up here, I do want him to answer some questions. There were some reasons for it. Gary, do you know off the top of your head what was different from the version that was approved by GPIP that I mistakenly did not get in the packet?
Yeah,
Just for
I do.
clarification.
And I'm not going to put all the blame on John. And like I said earlier, there's been multiple copies of this RFP going back and forth multiple times. And I think the wrong one got in there. So what's specifically different is under scope of work, we had some pretty defined parameters that the city and borough would like to see in the haul out. And then we had some other bullet points of a developer should strongly consider. So this was that, and this came through from what we heard last winter and last spring from GPIP meetings when we had a lot of the fleet here attending, that folks really wanted to see a marine travel lift. We've gone down the path of the access ramp, and it seemed like a lot of the community, at least the folks that were showing up to meetings, weren't in favor of that. We heard a lot of comments of people that refused to put their boats on a trailer, and they really wanted to see their boats come out with a marine haul out. So we heard that loud and clear, and that was one of the design requirements that we were putting in there. So as John said, we've always tried to be responsive. You know, starting in 2008, we went down a 2-year path looking at a ramp. And then all of a sudden we heard that the ramp isn't the option, and vessels refuse to use it. Okay, well then we're gonna pivot over here to a traditional marine haul out. And so that's where we were going. That's what we had in this RFP. And then just wanted to throw out that we also pushed and really encouraged people to form a co-op of local people to work together and bid on this RFP. I think that's the best solution, but all this takes money, and the city doesn't have any money, and hopefully a local co-op of folks can put it together. Now, I started this second path because just because I found the Homer document, and it was awesome. It's a really good document, and it allows us to move forward. And we were kind of taking two paths here. We were taking the path of,
well, make sure we're keeping this within the scope of the request for proposals.
okay, well, I'm just trying to explain that the reason that we did that is we've had this RFP out. We put out an RFP in 2009. We had one in 14. We did one in 20. We have anybody on it, and knowing how important it is to have the fleet, that's why we're doing two paths. That was my whole point.
Great, thank you. So we've heard from all the assembly members. We've heard that there's a lot of unanswered questions still. I don't have the document in front of me, obviously. Neither does any of the assembly. But I wonder, the assembly's time is very valuable coming up, but there seems to be a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of unknowns still. Would the assembly benefit from a work session on this?
I would be okay with it.
Yeah, Tor?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd be willing to. I just don't know. We're not the ones who are going to ultimately provide. If we had anything to provide, it might be more useful. You know, we don't have any money to put into this, or very little. And you know, I personally, I think we should go forward with the RFP. And maybe, since we unfortunately have a couple extra weeks, Gary and John can look at it and see if this group that's, we'll call it the co-op, which I know that may not be exactly right, what they call themselves, can fit in it. And if that's, because it would be cleaner. You know, I know the fee schedule looks good. You know, honestly, if we decided to say, let's just go with the fee schedule type, and if anybody wants to make a proposal, they can. But if it, you know, my druthers at this point would be do the RFP and encourage the co-op to put a proposal in.
Thank you, Valerie.
Since we don't have the correct document in front of us, I think it would be good common sense to make a motion, and I will make a motion to postpone this to our next regularly scheduled assembly meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone the issuance of the RFP until the next regularly scheduled assembly meeting. Is there any public comment?
Without the correct, this is Richard Ween, without the correct document, I don't think you have much of a choice either to table, meaning get rid of it, or to postpone it to some future time. So this apparently is very prudent not only to have the correct document in front of you so you can make a decision, but also it gives additional little bit of time to understand the conversation tonight and may be able to come back with additional answers to some of these questions and concerns.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, please.
And just, for public process here, if anybody out there listening wants to see the one that we're going to bring forward, they can go to the October 29th GPIP meeting on sawmillcove.com, and you can view it there and have any questions or bring them to me or John.
Great. Thank you for that additional information. Any other public comment on the motion to postpone? Bringing it back to the assembly for deliberation. Rebecca?
I'm just curious, Mr. Mayor, when you suggested the possibility of a work session to consider what? Like I think, obviously I'm in favor of waiting until we have the right document. I think Ms. Nelson's on the right track, but what would we have talked about in a work session? What am I missing?
I'd love to handle that, but it's not relevant to the motion at hand, unfortunately.
Okay.
Any other comment on the motion to postpone? Melissa?
To postpone item C, Ms. Hemshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Postponement passes 7-0.
Thank you. That moves us on to item D.
I move to approve a temporary lease between the city and borough of Sitka and K&E Alaska Incorporated for municipal property at Granite Creek lease area site 4 using prior agreement. The prior agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and forward to approve this temporary lease. Is there any public comment? As you are the only person in the gallery now, you're most welcome to just come up to the mic.
But I'm a good first grader, so I'll always ask for permission, even though I have to go, if you know what I mean. Don't start my time. This is, please reset. This is Richard Ween. This has to do with the temporary lease between CBS and K&E for Granite Creek area, Site 4. One of the things that I think should have been in the menu is what was the value of the lease in the past and how much did the city bring in? Because I think that's important when you evaluate these things. This lease was signed in 2016. K&E took over from Mr. Tischer in 2018. The lease expired in 2019, and the lease and its concerns were lost for a period of time, and that's why we're here for a temporary lease. My question is how much rock was taken out in that period? How were records kept? Because there are very specific ways in the lease on how records are to be kept. How was the tally of the rock made? How did the amount of rock during this lapse, how much were, I'm sorry, but the charges are also important since this is old, 2016 lease. It's $613 per month with 1.55 cents per cubic yard. That is the same price of rock that was in 2016 when Mr. Tischer signed the lease. Rock is supposed to be in demand. Has the value not changed? When did the city update the value of rock recently or ever? Also, the amount of the surety bond is also the same. I've been constantly told by people in the city that costs constantly go up. And so after 4 years, you'd think the surety bond, which covers not only royalty payments, but damages and repairs. So I think that there is also a reclamation clause, and how will that be paid if there is a walkaway? My notion is that this particular lease, I think, needs to be refined and updated before it is approved. I think there are any number of questions, and this is, I'll say, a typical kind of pass-on lease without considering the implications. And I just want everybody to remember, this is a business. And, rock is a business. And if we can optimize our return, I think that we need to explore that. And so I think it's important. And I did it without extra time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comment? Seeing none, back to the assembly for deliberation. And John?
Yes, thank you. This was part of our lease compliance efforts, and everything is in the memo here that the lease expired on September 1st, 2019. We found some issues that were out of compliance, and we have worked to rectify those issues to include payment of back rent due. That has been completely paid in at this point. There are surveys in the works right now to verify any royalties if those are due, but the claim is that no additional mining has happened since K&E took over that lease. So we are still waiting on that survey, and that's going to be one of the terms to sign this month to month. But the important thing is, yes, these are the numbers from the existing lease, but we are developing an RFP now to look for a new tenant or possibly the same. We will be putting an RFP out for lease area site 4. So basically a new lease with updated numbers. This is just in lieu of basically having the person vacate the space, we will leave them there on a month-to-month status while we develop an RFP going forward. Thanks.
Anything from the assembly? Valerie, please.
As someone that's married to a former contractor that has a long history in Sitka, I'm very aware of the lease situations in the Granite Creek area. And I think that this lease is probably a good thing. I think perhaps we need to look at all of the leases in Granite Creek, because you in the past were never allowed to sublet. And I think that's happened a lot. It went from Associated Sand and Gravel to Larry Shin, and then Seacon in one area. I think McTisher went to K&E, and K&E became K&E, who was kind of like global. Oh, before I go further, I need to disclose that my husband has rentals, and I guess, by default, I have rentals that K&E pays us for apartments in our commercial property, but I don't believe I have a conflict, and I'm not going to gain anything by voting yes or no on this.
Thank you for your disclosure. I also do not believe that there is a conflict. If anything changes, if you'll please advise the body. Valerie, did you have further comments, or was that the end of them?
Well, I would just say that I think that this is probably a good short-term fix, but all of those leases need to be looked at and reevaluated, because I don't think any of them are in compliance. So I probably will vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson, you had something here?
Yeah, just let me reiterate what John mentioned, in that there is an extensive review of land and title land leases going on within the city that John has pushed for since he became our administrator. And now that we have Jay Sweeney as a compliance officer, in his glide path to retirement. I'm the witness to a very extensive effort to review our land and tideland leases, and I think that'll benefit for the city greatly. And yes, Ms. Nelson, this is exactly what you have surmised it to be, is a short-term solution while we're trying to get all the leases at Granite Creek reviewed and complied with. And I think it's a good thing to do because there is an RFP coming for that site, and all the other sites are being reviewed at the same time. So I thought you might want to know my viewpoint from where I'm seeing where we're at here.
Great, thank you. Anything else from the assembly? Crystal, please.
Related to that timeline, do you know when you are hoping to put out the RFP?
I'm sorry, I don't have a firm timeline for you right now. I can just tell you that it's actively in development. We're exploring putting that together now.
Anything else from the assembly? Melissa?
For item D, Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Hemshoot,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Knox.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
And it appears I've committed quite the foul. We've gone past an hour without a break. So we'll take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll come back to our last couple items. As soon as people jump back online here, we can get this meeting rolling again.
Mr. Mayor, this is Kevin Mosher. I'm back.
Thank you for checking in. I do appreciate that. Okay, and then just checking in with Valerie. Are you back?
I'm here.
Great. We are all present, so we'll go ahead and move on to item, I crossed it out already.
E.
Item E, please. Echo.
I move to approve resolution 2020-32 on first and final reading, declaring a local emergency in response to the 2020 complex weather system and a request for state and federal assistance.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to declare a local emergency. Is there any public comment?
Richard Ween. This is something that's clearly very necessary. I know that the governor had made some statement about Southeast and all the issues related to the emergency. I just hope that they have the fiscal wherewithal in order to give some funds not only to all the other areas, especially Haines, but also to Sitka, which in the packet has close to $1 million worth of listed items that they would like to have some form of reimbursement. Having been a former member of the EOC, you could see how places like FEMA are very, I won't say stingy, but very much looking not to pay anything. And so I think this is a great idea. It needs to happen. It's just that I hope the disappointment level is not great when they don't give us much, if anything. So, but it's something that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment this evening? Seeing none, back to the assembly and John clarifying info.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. This is an emergency declaration to align with the governor's emergency declaration for Southeast Alaska after the heavy rain and winds in the end of November, early December. You know, before the governor made his declaration, we had a few things happen here that is actually in the memo. We had some private property that had some sliding of some of their property onto Sand Dollar Drive. We had some pretty significant damage out at the Metavici Hatchery. And then we had some drainage and some road repairs that we had to do at Blue Lake and Green Lake. And relatively speaking, our damage was fairly minor. I know $1 million doesn't really sound minor, but relatively speaking, it's fairly minor. And I really hesitated going forward with this because I didn't even want to compare to the emergency that existed in or exists now in Haines. We've been through that before here in 2015, and I can sympathize with what they're going through in Haines. So the reason we went forward with this, even given the minor infrastructure needs, was Senator Stedman's office contacted me and said that the governor was thinking about putting a declaration together for all of Southeast, and they asked for our input. So we took the golden opportunity to outline the damage. And fortunately, we had all of that captured. And NSERA offered up some very valuable information and some cost data. So the door was opened, and we put the declaration together and sent some costs to the office, and then the governor made his declaration. So this is just our piece to follow on if that door for funding is opened. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarifying comments. Assembly, is there any deliberation on this? I think it's obviously
Seems pretty straightforward.
A necessity. I think it's lucky that Sitka, we actually didn't have a whole lot from this weather system. I think it could have been much, much worse. I know I sat by my fire department pager, anxiously awaiting the passing of this storm. So a necessity, and I thank staff for bringing it forward. And I'm sorry, Tor, I walked right on top of you there.
Oh, I just said it seems pretty straightforward and pretty necessary, and I had my radio out too.
Anything further from the assembly? Melissa?
For item E, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Ms. Himshoot.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-32 passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item F, an update discussion on the CARES Act Working Group. We'll have a presentation by our administrator, and then public comment will be taken on this item. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully this will be the last one of these reports I will have to give for some time. As you've probably seen, we're anticipating closing out the CARES funding that came to us, the original, I think it was 14.2 million. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the original closeout date was supposed to be December 30th. That has since been extended until September 30th of 2021. But since we had such a great team and a good working group, we put together a very strong plan for grants, for utility subsidies, for social programs, for city mitigation efforts, and that money is working as planned. And we're starting to get the final invoices in at this point for some of the temporary employment program. So we're verifying those invoices now. We'll get the invoices in for the mental health programs that are available. And then we've got some sub-recipient agreements that are still out there working as advertised. So we're hoping to continue along that plan and close out this first round of funding on December 30th as anticipated. Although there may be some funds left over in some of those sub-recipient agreements or in some of those contracts, I would say that the amount of funding left over is going to be fairly minimal, and we won't have those numbers yet probably until mid-January when we provide a full report. So it's really hard for me to say at this point if we have the capability to extend any of these programs any further. So yes, that is my update and discussion, but I'm also looking for a little bit of direction here where our working group is going to close this phase out and move along with the accounting and the reporting unless there's some will of the body to have us come back with those numbers and look at extending any of the programs. I just don't know at this point if the juice would be worth the squeeze, and it'll take some time before I get that information to you. Thanks.
John, quick question, just clarifying. So am I correct in that unused funds, we can use those towards public safety, correct?
That is our plan, and that was our anticipation, is that whatever minimal amounts of unused funds we had left over would go towards public safety. We've been using pretty much our own accounts, and although we're charging time to CARES, it was one of those just in case if there are funds left over, we have that charge in our accounting system that we can put those leftover CARES dollars towards our public safety costs.
Any other discussion with the assembly? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Let's have public comment first, and then we'll bring it back to the assembly. Anyone on the update discussion about CARES Act Working Group?
Richard Ween. Again, I'd like to highlight, I know my thanks as well as many, many, many other people's thanks to the administrator, staff, as well as the work group for putting this together. I'm glad to see that some common sense came in and gave some breathing time, meaning September 21st. And I think that if we had that originally, we may have done things potentially a little differently. But it's nice to know. But that being said, it also gives us breathing room if there's anything left over to kind of hold on to it a little bit to see what comes down the road, since there does not appear to be as great an urgency to spend it, because you never know what can come down, especially in the day and age of COVID. And I do feel that if you look at what the current stimulus and COVID, we'll call it the COVID stimulus, is with the federal government, they were not giving checks out to those who earned more than $75,000. And so I think that's an important earmark to note that there are people who are in this city who also may require additional funds, and those limited funds that are left over should be targeted to those people who truly have the limited resources, and in some ways documented so. So again, thank you for the group for getting this pretty awesome task done, and hopefully it'll be the last time that we'll have to take care of it. And people who are earning less than $75,000, you're going to be getting $600, which is not a heck of a lot, but it's, again, something here in Southeast Alaska. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else to speak on the CARES Act Working Group update? All right, Assembly, did you have anything to talk about or for John this evening?
Just that, just that I agree that we should be closing it out. And I like John's plan of, capturing some of the extra public safety expenses we've had.
John?
Yeah, I have one more thing I want to add. This will be quick. I really want to thank the staff at City Hall that worked on this. Staff fatigue would be an understatement. There were people running around like crazy to get this money spent appropriately, well outside the scope of their normal duties, and it took up a lot of people's time. So I think you're going to get a big sigh of relief from city staff as well if we're done dealing with CARES funding.
All right, seeing nothing else, this will bring us on to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes. Well, it's got to be off the agenda since you spoke to everything else already.
Well, I'll try to find something. Richard Ween, some important fun facts are that the average Russian drinks 4 gallons worth of vodka a year. And so with the amount that Eckerd is brewing, I don't think I could have my wedding and have an open bar. But that's besides the point. It's they kind of put up nothing. And the other thing is we should never give away city commodities without some real reason. It's not just throwaway. Even if you think you have a lot, it doesn't mean there is. And remember, there's going to be like a $8 billion gallon request coming up next month. So our things began to decrease. But again, this is business and we have to treat it like a business. And speaking of businesses, it's the haul out. I want to remind people that this is, quote, our haul out, unquote. And that I do have to tell you, there's a YouTube which is put out on how to make a turkey, and it's by Tanta Marie. Tanta is Italian for aunt. And her basic notion is just put the freaking turkey in the oven and quit messing around with this. What we need to do as the city is to put the turkey in the oven, get this thing started. The interest rates are very low. On $1 million loan, it's $20,000, even though I know it's a leverage, and I'm sure we can get low-cost loans. And now we have a potential partner here with the Banking for Four Favor mentioned with another $1 million. And I think we can certainly put it done and put the turkey in the oven. I really, I feel the administrator's frustration because this is going around and around and around. This is our haul out. I think we know precisely what to do. And here's the other thing. The Assembly already approved a $100,000 consultation fee. So we already have that on the table in an effort to get this whole thing going. So in the words of Tanta Marie, just put the turkey in the oven. I won't use her language. Look it up on YouTube.
Thank you. Any other public comments on or off the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, that brings us to reports. So I need to apologize to the Assembly. I, once again, do not have a report. I look through my agenda and I see it's at the very end now. And I honestly, it skips my mind and I don't write anything down to report. So my New Year's resolution to the Assembly is to make sure that I have a report for you, even if it's as light as I got a bunch of emails this week. But that will be that'll be my goal and resolution to the Assembly for the new year. So thank you to the Assembly for all of your work throughout the year. I do appreciate it. 2020 is going to be remembered as quite the year, obviously. And I look forward to working with all of you throughout the next year as we hopefully overcome some of the hurdles that have been put in front of us, as we overcome the hurdles of our budget. And we continue to move the municipality forward, because I think that's why we all signed up and were elected, is to move the municipality forward. So as the new year comes on, let's not forget about that goal, and let's keep charging as hard as we possibly can. Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a brief report on what's going on in the EOC. I'm pulling up the cityofsitka.org website now and checking the dashboard. We're continuing to see a downward trend in our active cases for COVID. It looks like today we're at 2.2 is our 14-day rolling case count. I should have had the recent wastewater report. It looks like that's posted as well. We're seeing a downward trend in the wastewater report. I've been sharing that with the Assembly as well. So you should see that. We got the first round of vaccines hit last week. We're proceeding with the plan as published by the state, the phase 1A frontline medical workers. There's different allocations. So we received a city allocation. Search has gotten their own allocation. Pioneer Home had an allocation. And then we got a press release today that the Moderna version of the vaccine should be coming very soon. So please keep looking at the website and look for news as we push it out and how we're going to distribute the vaccines and at what phase we're in and where people can go get vaccinated. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm thankful for, say that a lot this time of year, Administrator Leach and the leadership he's shown and the hard work that all the staff that I work with and getting the extra workload done and the quality and the quantity of work that was done in 2020. Especially thankful for my assistant, Carl Krenna, who works from home but does a great job of dealing with that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Liaison representatives.
Mr. Mayor, this is Kevin Mosher. I guess I kind of should have said this, that person's to be heard, but it's not really a report, but I just want to.
There is another at the end as well if you need.
Yeah, that'll be better.
Okay. Liaison representatives.
Just, well, I actually missed a GPIP meeting while I was actually in the air a few weeks ago. I have been into a few meetings about that and discussions. We heard some of that tonight, but it sounds like the co-op is working towards something a little more concrete than we've heard in the past. And I'm actually somewhat hopeful they're going to manage to get something going. So other than that, all of the planning and zoning meetings have been canceled. So I've got a light schedule. So thank you.
Rebecca, please.
Yeah, it feels a little bit silly to report on school board because they're covered in the Sentinel, but I'll just point out that they have started the process of the superintendent search, and they had a marathon, like 4-hour meeting with the Association of Alaska School Boards, Alaska Association of School Boards, and they're narrowing down what they're looking for, but then also where they're looking. And then the other news, I think, from the district that's important for us is that they're going to start a strategic planning process at some point in the near future. That's it from school board.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, moving on to clerk.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. And other, Mr. Mosier, you had an other report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't do this very often, but maybe it's because of the season. I have been very thankful and appreciative and just pondering the place that we live in, Sitka, and the assembly member. I just want to thank all the assembly members and the city staff, John, Brian, and all the city staff, as well as all the members of the community who are pitching in right now. Very difficult times, and I know people are doing a lot or putting up with a lot, and I'm very fortunate to live here, and I'm grateful, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for just doing what you're doing.
Valerie, you had an other as well?
Yes, I'd like to wish all of you happy holidays and hoping and praying for a better new year. Thank you.
Yes, I think we can all agree a much better 2021 as opposed to a 2020. So. All right, I think that wraps up our meeting tonight, as there is no executive session planned. So I would move on to adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you for your
Merry
time.
Christmas, everybody.
We are adjourned.
Happy holidays.
See you
See you
next year.